Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents What a Meth by Jamie Lee Scott. Narrated by Gabra, Zackman and Todd, McLaren. Chapter 1. Jackie McLaren raised both hands, arms fully extended, and fired off 6 rounds from her Smith & Wesson .38 Special plus P. She had the one with the crimson laser. When she finished firing, she turned to me, placed her weapon on the counter in front of her, and pushed a button. Removing her ear covers, she said, "Beat that." As the stationary target rolled toward us in the shooting range stall, I noticed she'd nailed it with 2 to the chest and 1 to the head. I never want to be on the other end of her gun. "Through and through, baby. Through and through." She pumped her fist. She pushed a strand of red hair behind her ear and tossed her head back. Jackie was the only person I knew who looked sexy in skinny jeans and a baggy white t-shirt. Well, the leopard print pumps on her feet may have helped the sex factor. I waited until the target was right in front of us before I commented. Upon closer inspection, she'd put 2 chest shots nearly in the same hole, and the head shots were actually in the same hole. "Screw you! I can't believe it!" I screeched in mock horror. "You've been cheating on me." Dressed in my go-to uniform of black t-shirt, black slacks, and black loafers — yes, I do have other colors in my closet — I was up next. I can guarantee you the men in the other stalls weren't drooling over me the way they did over Jackie when I stepped up to shoot. I pulled off the used target, put up a fresh one, and pushed the button that slid it back in shooting position. My turn. I lifted my Beretta Cheetah 85, which was a .380 automatic, sighted, no laser by the way, and fired. I didn't even look in Jackie's direction before I put the gun down, and I didn't pull the target forward. I already knew she outshot me. I holstered my weapon and turned to leave. Behind me I could hear Jackie cracking up. "Sore loser." I smiled but kept walking. The bitch had been cheating on me, and she was rubbing it in. Yeah, you've been sneaking around on me," I said without turning around. Mock hurt in her voice, she cried out, "I have not. I can't believe you'd accuse me of that." Then she ran up behind me and wrapped her arm over my shoulder. "Not my fault you've got better things to do than come shooting with me." I really grinned now. I missed my best friend so much, even though we saw each other every day. But special times, like this, were few and far between. She worked for me at my private detective agency, Gotcha, but I did my thing and she did hers, and we just didn't have the kind of girl time we used to covet. Time is not on our side, baby doll. I leaned my head against hers as we walked out of the building. A weekday lunch break with my best friend was a rare commodity these days, even though we work in the same office together. It's even rarer when we have enough leftovers to enjoy lunch at my house or hers. Sitting at my kitchen table, our guns disassembled, cleaned, and oiled, I said, "Even though you kicked my ass, that was so fun." I placed the last piece of my gun on a towel. "Well, you have other things in your life at the moment." She stuffed a slice of cheese in her mouth. Still chewing, she said, "Speaking of other things, did you talk to Nick about what you saw?" Between us on the table was a buffet of cheese, deli meats, grapes, avocado, and egg salad sandwiches. I wasn't sure eating while cleaning guns was sanitary, but we didn't care. The only thing we cared about was proper safety precautions, which we followed. I shook my head. "Too soon." "It's been months. How is that too soon?" "It was a one-time thing. I was tired. It could have been a mirage." I chugged the last of the water in my bottle and tossed it into the garbage. Okay, I tossed it at the garbage can, and it hit the rim and rolled across the kitchen floor, landing near Lola's feet. Lola had her head resting on Jackie's lap as we sat at my kitchen table. Drool dripped out the sides of Lola's lips as she waited patiently for Jackie to drop even a crumb. "You realized I'm going to have to go home now and change my pants before I go back to work?" She was talking to Lola, not me. I stuffed another bite of egg salad sandwich in my mouth, only the egg salad wasn't really a sandwich. I had a huge bowl of chopped hard-boiled eggs mixed with mayo, pickle relish, and a hint of Dijon mustard that I kept in the refrigerator, and I just took a large leaf of butter lettuce, slathered on the egg salad, and rolled it up like a burrito. It was delicious, even without the bread. I'd sworn off bread for almost 2 weeks, and I still missed it. A lot. Only 10 more pounds to go, then sourdough it is. I swooned at the thought. Why is it you want to lose weight? Jackie, a former chunkster who was now as fit and tight as a bodybuilder, asked. What if it was him? I pinched the excess at my middle. I've gained at least 20 pounds since that day. I was talking about the day my husband Dominic died. Though there was a terrible plane crash, his body was never found, and right after it happened, I refused to believe he was dead. I didn't get much closure or sympathy from Dominic's family over the matter, as they had completely cut ties with me after I refused to give up the Victorian in which Gotcha Detective Agency resides. Just when I'd finally moved on with my life, I swear I saw him. It was like that weird moment when you see movement out of the corner of your eye, and when you look, there's nothing there. It's like you're keeping the sighting a secret. It had become known as the sighting after I confessed to Charles about what I saw. I'd been with Nick Christensen, my boyfriend, though I never dared say that word aloud, when I had the Dominic sighting. I'd just woken from sleeping in the car, and there was Dominic, sitting in a car in the next lane over. I'd tried to see what kind of car he was in and strained to get a license plate number, but it was getting dark and my wits weren't exactly about me. But I know it wasn't him. If he was alive and in Salinas, why hadn't he contacted me? It made my stomach churn. If it had been him, he'd have tried to call me. I knew it. Not a day had gone by that I hadn't lived that moment over and over. I should have had Nick chase the car down. He had a police light he could put on his dashboard, and we could have followed that car. Was it Dominic? I had no idea, and as much as I wanted my husband to be alive, this wasn't how I wanted it to go down. It was probably just a crazy dream. I shoved a mouthful of egg salad in my mouth to hopefully put an end to the conversation. If you really don't think it was Dominic, why are you dieting? Jackie pointed at me as I chewed the butter lettuce and egg mixture. I chewed the eggs, even though they were ready to swallow, just to make Jackie wait for an answer. Then I thought about the real reason and nearly choked on what I was trying to swallow. I coughed and choked, and my eyes watered. Jackie jumped up to help. Are you okay? I put my hand up to tell her I was fine. I was laughing, crying, and choking all at the same time. Then, once the coughing was finished, I started sneezing. Is it just me, or does everyone sneeze after a choking fit? I cleared my throat, which was now a tad sore. I'm embarrassed to tell you why. You embarrassed to tell me something? There's a first. Jackie walked over to the sink and grabbed a towel, turned on the water, and soaked it. I saw my butt when Nick and I were doing it, I said. Jackie burst out laughing. She wrung out the towel and started dabbing at the slobber stain Lola had left on her thigh. It's not funny, I said, a bit defensive. Jackie, still laughing, nodded. Oh, yes, it is. Where the hell were you when you were looking at your ass? Nick has a mirror over the dresser in his guest room. The dresser is next to the bed, and I happened to look to the side as I was... Anyway, I saw myself in the mirror. Jackie tossed the towel she'd used in the laundry room and said, Then obviously he can see it too, and he hasn't said anything about you needing to lose a pound or two, has he? I rolled my eyes. The thing is, I've been avoiding intimate moments since we got back from San Francisco. Not all intimate moments. I mean, a girl has needs. Jackie stopped wiping drool from her jeans. What? Why? I stood and put my dishes in the dishwasher. The sighting. I walked back to the table and grabbed her dishes. I didn't want to look her in the eye. I was embarrassed by my hope. Baby, you need to get laid. And soon. I suddenly feel like I'm cheating on Dominic. I stacked the rest of the dishes in the dishwasher as Lola tried desperately to get around me to lick the remnants before I closed the door. You have got to be kidding me. She grabbed me by the shoulders and made me face her. If you don't start taking care of the man who worships you, he's going to start looking elsewhere, and you'll deserve it. I looked her in the eyes. I know. Then what the hell are you doing? Honey, that man loves you, and he's here. He's not going to leave you. He will if he finds out Dominic is still alive. I felt my voice crack. Until you can prove one way or the other, forget you ever had the sighting, and love the one you're with. Jackie shook her head as we walked out of the kitchen into the yard. And you need to tell Nick. I didn't say anything, just followed behind her, with Lola following me. Your ass looks just fine, but if you want to go for a run later today, I'm up for it. Only if you promise not to lecture me. She turned back to face me. Let Dominic go. Trying to lighten the mood, I said, Besides, if that was really Dominic, I want him to be drooling when he sees me. I want him begging to get me back. He's your husband. He already has you, she pointed out. Enough Dominic talk already. What about Willis? Willis Grant was the first man Jackie had dated since her marriage had ended. He was tall, lean, completely bald, he shaved it bald, and had a penchant for wearing shorts. If my legs looked like Lance Armstrong's, which his did, I'd show them off too. Willis isn't a health nut or a gym rat, he's a cyclist. When you bike as many miles as he does each week, you have to stuff your face just to keep weight on. That's not what I meant. What does he think of fat women? I opened the back door of Jackie's Toyota and let Lola in, then got in on the passenger side. Jackie was already buckling her seatbelt. He thinks large women are attractive enough. Her answer was evasive. Besides, what does it matter now? We're done. I don't believe that for a second. We'd pretty much dropped the discussion on the way back to the office since one of Jackie's twins had called, begging to have a sleepover on a school night. By the time we got out of the car, Jackie's color had gone from normal to crimson. Trying to keep your temper can do that. Does it ever start to get better? This parenting stuff sucks. I hate being the bad guy, but I refuse to be the bad parent. I put my arm around her waist as we walked to the office. You're doing a fabulous job. Your kids are great, and everyone I know comments on how polite and well-spoken they are. Jackie swelled with pride, and the flush faded to a redder shade of normal. Besides, it's not your job to be their best friend. It's your job to be a responsible parent. She'd parked at the front of the office, so we entered through the front doors. Holding the door open for us, she patted Lola on the butt as she entered, and then did the same to me. Nice ass. As I walked in, Courtney Chris stood from the reception desk. She looked off to her left as if trying to signal me, but before I could ask what was going on, a woman came into view. Mimi, this is Alyssa King. She's here to talk to you. Courtney seemed more than a smidgen uncomfortable. I looked at the woman, who was obviously dressed in her Sunday best. The leather on her sandals was badly scuffed, and her legs were so tan her skin matched the leather of her shoes. And boy, were their legs, all the way up to the cut-off denim miniskirt that barely covered her butt cheeks. When she turned slightly, I could see stretch mark patterns from the curve of her butt to the lower end of her calves. The strappy shirt she wore barely covered the navy tube top beneath it. Her wardrobe screamed garage sale specials. I'm sorry, did we have an appointment? I could see Courtney out of the corner of my eye, shaking her head as I asked the question. Hi, Ms. Capurro. I'm sorry I don't have an appointment. I'm desperate, and I need help. You were the first private detective I found in the Yellow Pages. When she spoke, she tended to put her hand in front of her mouth to cover the fact that most of her teeth were missing. The teeth, her inability to stand completely still, and the boniness of her frame gave me pause. I felt like she'd break if I told her to make an appointment and come back some other time. I turned to Courtney. Can we push the staff meeting back about 30 minutes? Courtney, still standing, nodded. Jackie broke the trance. Okay, I'll go make coffee since the staff meeting will probably be a snoozer and we'll need all the reinforcements we can get to stay awake. She trotted off in the direction of the kitchen, Lola following close behind. Alyssa followed me to my office. I pointed to the chair, and she sat obediently as I went around to my side of the desk. So what exactly is so urgent that you couldn't make an appointment for a later date? I tried not to sound miffed. She bobbed her leg up and down at an alarming rate and constantly looked over her shoulder. I didn't know I needed an appointment until I got here. She played with the hem of her skirt. As her eyes darted all around the room, I noticed one hand kept coming up to her hair, wanting to twist it in her fingers. Then she'd catch herself and put her hand back in her lap. When she spoke, she tried very hard not to show her teeth, or lack thereof. Well, you're here, so what is it you need? I smiled, trying to be more patient. She looked around as if someone was spying on us, and said, My Jeff is cheatin'. It took every ounce of energy I had not to roll my eyes. Did Courtney tell you what our fees are while you were waiting? Please, just listen. This is why I gots to see you today. She paused. I waited and leaned forward, putting my elbows on the desk, trying to look interested in her story, the one she couldn't afford me for. I've been noticing a pattern with Jeff. On Thursday, when I walked our girls to school, I seen him leave the house earlier than usual. He goes down the street in the other direction and around the corner. His old girlfriend lives on that street. I listened. He's cheatin'. I got 3 kids, ain't got no job, and he's cheatin' on me. She started to cry. I mean, really sob. I looked closely at her as I started to pull a tissue from my drawer. I stood and leaned over my desk to hand it to her. "I'm sorry, I don't think you came to the right place. We're very expensive." She jumped up so fast I was knocked off balance as I backed away. "Look." She pulled wads of money from her small purse. "I got $500. What'll that buy me?" She wore garage sale clothes, tweaked like a junkie, and was literally throwing $500 at me. This didn't add up. I pushed the 20s into a pile in the middle of my desk and started to stack them. "It'll get you half a day, but you can't afford this." What the hell was I thinking? I couldn't afford to turn away money, but she couldn't afford to be paying me. She shoved the money at me with force. "Take it. If I had more, I'd pay just to be done with it, to be sure." "Why can't you just follow him yourself?" This whole situation had me on the ropes. "Because he done it before and he lies his way out of it. He tells my parents and his I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I need proof so I can tell his parents I'm not crazy and they'll believe me." She dropped down into the chair, seemingly exhausted, and twirled her long, auburn hair with her fingers. I put the money in a pile on the desk. "Like I said, this will get you half a day. I'll take your money, but if I don't find something out in that half a day, it'll be a waste." "Half a day is enough. I promise. Maybe prowling in the morning." Alyssa's energy was renewed as she jumped from the chair and tossed a photo of her husband on my desk. "I gotta go. The girls get out of school early today, and my mother-in-law borrowed me her car to go pick them up." She turned and nearly skipped to the door. I yelled after her, "I need an address." Chapter 2. I got the address from Alyssa and made a mad dash to the staff meeting in the kitchen. When I walked into the room, Charles Parks, my business partner, looked pointedly at me and shook his head. "What?" I asked, annoyed. "Please tell me you sent that woman out of here without a second thought." The look on his face showed he knew I didn't. I grabbed my favorite oversized cup from the cupboard and poured myself a cup of coffee, turned around and leaned against the counter, taking a soothing sip before I answered. Jackie, Courtney, and even Lola stared at me. They were waiting for an answer, too. "I took her on as a client," I said. In stereo, Charles, Jackie, and Courtney said, "What?" Even Lola was dismayed as she let out a groan and shook her head. I stared her down. How dare she take sides? She dropped to the floor and rested her head on her paws, still looking up at me. She had cash, I defended myself. Cold, hard cash. $500. Charles jumped up and got in my face. "Where the hell do you think a woman like that got that kind of cash, Mimi? She's a tweaker. That is dirty money." I leaned toward Charles, who had long since failed to intimidate me. "I don't care." Jackie intervened. "What do you mean you don't care?" Charles and I looked at her. "If that's drug money, we just laundered it for her. Does that make us criminals?" She seemed truly concerned. Courtney smiled at this question. "Actually, it's not a crime to spend the cash someone gives you. It's a crime if the money has been seized and then it gets spent. Because in reality, you don't know how she came into that money. Maybe it was a gift from her husband, mom, or lover." I glared at Jackie and Charles. "Yeah, what she said." Charles paced the few steps across the kitchen and back. "I don't like it. You'd think if a girl like that had $500, she'd be buying drugs with it. I mean, did you see her? I haven't seen anyone tweaking like that since I was in the 7-Eleven in Pruntucky." Pruntucky was Charles's nickname for Prunedale, which is located due north of Salinas. Back in the day, and even still today, though not as much, Prunedale was the poor man's property. There would be a $500,000 home next to a single-wide with a junkyard for landscaping. With the real estate boom, the area became less single-wides and more estates. Then the bubble burst, and many estates were now in foreclosure. Funny you should mention Prunedale. The address she gave me is located off of San Miguel Canyon Road. Sound familiar? Courtney stared blankly, but Jackie and Charles understood. Jackie said, "The candle place." The candle place had meaning to Charles and Jackie, but Courtney hadn't worked for us back when Jackie had been having problems with her daughter Katie, and we'd stumbled upon a pedophile. Charles noticed Courtney's lack of comprehension first. "It was a case we worked before you came on board. I'll explain later." Then he turned to me. "What was that lady's name? The one with the shotgun?" I laughed at the thought. That lady was tougher than Charles and me combined. I'd have to look it up. But she was a piece of work, wasn't she? I'm thinking she was more skilled with that shotgun than we knew. She was protecting something. Maybe, but that's history. I looked around the room. Anyone want to accompany me tomorrow morning? Suddenly, everyone had someplace else to look, other than at me. Fine, whatever, I'll do it myself. It's just a cheating husband case. I added more coffee to my cup and started out of the room. Meeting adjourned. Charles asked, "What's the address?" "Why, are you going to join me?" "No, I'm just curious, that's all." I recited the address from memory. "I'm out of here." Charles grabbed my shoulder. "Not so fast. We have a lot of cases coming up, and we need to discuss who is taking what." I turned on Charles. "Good. You three can figure out how to handle them and write me a report." I was being stubborn, and I knew it. I was mad that they didn't back my decision to take the client. But I couldn't always be around to hold everyone's hand, so they could work without me. Jackie said, "Mimi." No Mimi about it. You think you know what's better for this company than I do, so you figure it out." I left the room. I wasn't in my office for more than a minute when Courtney knocked softly on my door. I looked up to see her smiling face. "Can I come in?" She walked in as she asked. I still wasn't ready to concede. "What?" I snipped at her. "We decided to move the meeting to tomorrow morning." She sat on the chair in front of my desk. "Good. I won't be here tomorrow morning." I fired up my laptop to finish updating my files. "No problem. I think I have everything under control as far as the cases we're working. I wanted to let you know I've narrowed the candidate for receptionist down to 3 people. Did you want me to start setting up the interviews?" Courtney, all 5 feet 4 inches of her, was a force to be reckoned with. She was hired by the agency for her superior surveillance skills, but went above and beyond. She'd pretty much spent her time, when not working cases, setting up our office to function in the 21st century. I looked in her big brown eyes and saw sincerity. I felt horrible for forgetting the interviews. I'd forgotten all about that. She grinned. "That's why you pay me the big bucks." I knew I wasn't paying her what she was worth, and she knew I couldn't afford to. But someday... "Would you mind doing the first round of interviews, and then we can have serious candidates come in for a team interview?" "That sounds like a great idea. I'm going to be in the office all this week and next, working on a new program for our decoys, so I can just do the interviews during that time." She stood. New program for the decoys? There was always something going on that no one had told me about. She sat back down on the edge of her chair. "Didn't Charles tell you? I got us a contract with the police department. We're going to be providing them with the decoys for the Vice Squad." She was giddy with the news. "Are you serious? I've been courting them for more than a year and hitting a brick wall." "I know." She seemed a bit too excited about my lack of progress. "But I got a meeting with the chief of police and showed him some of my new equipment and software, and they're on board. We'll be training the decoys they hire after we iron out the kinks. But until then, we'll be working the streets. Soledad Street, to be precise." Anyone who has ever been to Salinas knows we're famous for lettuce and John Steinbeck. You can't miss the gargantuan museum erected in his honor. It's smack dab in the middle of town. Steinbeck made Salinas famous in his book The Grapes of Wrath, and Soledad Street happened to be mentioned in that novel. Steinbeck called it the Red Light District in his books, and it's still called that today, though a bit of this has spilled over to Kern Street, too. "This is terrific. I can't wait to start implementing it." I'd forgotten how mad I had been. Courtney stood again. "I've got work to do, but I wanted to tell you the news, since I'd planned to talk about it in the meeting." As Courtney walked out of my office, for the first time I felt like Gotcha Detective Agency was going to make it. We'd been gaining credibility ever so slowly, and now we had a contract with the police department. All was right with the world. When I left the office that night, I felt whole for the first time since I lost my husband. Little did I know that feeling wouldn't last through the next 12 hours. Chapter 3. I usually hit the snooze button several times before finally dragging my ass out of bed, but today I had to be up before the sun to get to Alyssa's house in time. Knowing it was going to be a rough morning, I'd set my clothes out on the chair in my bedroom the night before. Comfy black stretch pants with a long-sleeved black shirt and a matching hoodie. I even decided matching black bra and panties would be a good idea. You never know, I may have lunch with Nick later. I was hoping I'd get up the nerve to tell him about Dominic. I'm not sure what I was avoiding, because I was sure it wasn't really him, and Nick would probably agree. But Nick's aversion to adultery scared me. If he thought we were committing adultery, I was sure we'd be through. Not that we weren't already on the way to being through. I'd been avoiding any situations where we were together alone. As much as I loved having sex with him, I felt like I was cheating. Oh, this whole not knowing was so unfair, but it was how I'd started every day since the sighting. Instead of waking up happy to start a new day and anticipating being with Nick, I was filled with apprehension. Closure, one way or the other. I needed closure. Lola barely stirred as I sat up in bed. She looked up at me from her fluffy pillow, then put her head right back down, figuring I was only getting up to pee. I was up and at 'em for the day, like it or not, though I sat on the edge of the bed contemplating going back to sleep. My eyes burned from the restless night and yearned to close tightly as I lay my head back on the pillow. No, I was not going to lie back on the pillow. I was getting up. I slapped my face lightly a few times, trying to snap myself out of sleep mode. I stood and dragged my feet as I stumbled my way in the dark to the bathroom. "Never again," I said aloud, as I dried off and slathered lotion over my body. Why had I taken that woman's money when I knew I didn't want to be up this early? Because you needed the money, stupid, I reminded myself. I looked in the mirror only long enough to see that I didn't have any toothpaste foam still on my face. I didn't have time to put on makeup and do my hair, so I used my fingers to comb my wet locks up on top of my head and secured the wadded mess with a brown hair tie. I pulled my black hoodie over my black shirt and grabbed a granola bar on my way out the door. I was just about to shut the door when I remembered Lola was still in bed. She apparently wasn't a morning girl either. "Lola, come on, let's go." She didn't even stir. I had to go back to my bedroom, grab her by the collar, and drag her outside. Once she did her morning duty, she was wide awake and raced me to the car. Prunedale always fascinated me. It was a mix of old hippie and new money, and they lived together in relative harmony. To be honest, if I wanted to live in the country, this was the last place I'd live. I'd rather drive the extra miles and live in Hollister, or even Gilroy. But I'm a city girl, and I'd even planned to sell my house and buy a condo when I retired. Retirement should also mean you don't have to mow the lawn or pull weeds, but then I wasn't sure I wanted to share a wall with my neighbors either. No worries, retirement was a few hundred years in the future for me. As I drove the roads toward my destination, I was amazed at how the more things change, the more they remain the same. Cliché, I know, but true. Staking out a house in a tract-home neighborhood is much easier than in the country. Prunedale is considered country, since the houses can range from 100-foot lots to 100-acre farms. If I'd been driving down the right roads, I'd have seen hillsides of strawberries growing right next to a horse farm. Yep, this was country living at its best. The address Alyssa had given me was on a street of small acreages. I could see the house from the street, and wondered how on earth they could afford the rent. I'm assuming from Alyssa's appearance they don't own the property. It was a narrow road with only dirt shoulders, so there was nowhere for me to park while I observed. But I could see the house from the road easily. Her house sat up off the road about 50 feet, a dark brown house that looked to have at least 3 bedrooms. There was a building that looked like a workshop or in-laws' quarters up on the hill behind the main house, and the rest of the property was a steep hill reaching beyond the workshop. Since the large door was open, I could see 2 cars in the garage. I thought Alyssa had said she had to borrow her mother-in-law's car because they only had one. Across from their home was a horse farm, with a dozen horses grazing lazily on hay from their feeders. The farm was clean but run down, with chipping paint on the fences, and a few broken boards. Next to the farm was a $1 million McMansion. Why would someone build such a nice home next to a horse farm? Ugh, the smell. Overall, the neighborhood seemed way out of Alyssa's price range. The hairs on my neck rose. Something was very stinky, and it wasn't the horse manure. Good thing I was early, as I had to drive up and down the street looking for a location that wouldn't get me noticed or run over. I ended up parking in the driveway of a house that had no cars. I figured they must have already gone to work for the day. I hoped I was correct. I didn't want some housewife calling the cops on me. I had to watch from an angle, but that was good because I wouldn't be as noticeable. As I watched the property, I realized I was looking at the wrong house because Alyssa walked out of a smaller guest cottage behind the house. She had her daughters in tow, and it looked as if her girls had been lucky enough to shop at the same garage sales as their mother. I wondered if they were teased in school for their clothing. I chastised myself for what I was thinking. She was probably doing the best
Sample complete. Ready to continue?